My name is Mary, a 52-year-old company employee. My husband, John, and I have been married for over 20 years. And our only daughter, Ava, has also found a job and moved out of the house. I was thinking that we would live a quiet life together from now on, but it seems that my husband isn't thinking that way at all. The weather is nice, why don't we go shopping together? No matter how much I invite him on his days off, my husband stubbornly refuses to go out with me.
Why do I have to go out with you?
He responds with a disgruntled look on his face. He doesn't try to go out with me, but there are times when he goes on trips alone. When I look at him suspiciously and ask, "Are you going on a solo trip?" he says,
No, I was invited by my boss and I have to go.
He makes an excuse as if he doesn't want to go. This suspicious behavior of my husband has been going on for about 5 years. This was around the time when my mother-in-law had a stroke and I started caring for her at home. Living with my husband's family, my husband forced me to take care of my mother-in-law. It was hard, but it was also a fulfilling time. My mother-in-law, before she collapsed, was a bit naggy, and we didn't have a very good relationship. However, since I started caring for her, she expressed her gratitude every day, and I felt it was worth caring for her. My mother-in-law's symptoms weren't that serious, so it was enough to just check on her between my work, which was a relief. I worked for a design company, but when I started caring for my mother-in-law, I decided to work from home. The care of my mother-in-law was limited to assisting her with helping her going to the toilet and making her meals, so it was possible even while I worked. I could have had a professional caregiver come in, but their time was limited. I was worried about my mother-in-law when no one was around. If she had another stroke, it would be quite dangerous, was what the doctor told us. Even when going to hear such an important explanation from the doctor, my husband didn't want to go.
It's okay if you listen, right? I'm busy.
Leaving those words behind, he would go off somewhere again. My mother-in-law seemed to notice this, and she would apologize to me in tears, saying, "I'm sorry for causing trouble for you, Mary." I was the one who comforted my apologetic mother-in-law. My mother-in-law lived at home for 3 more years, but then she had another stroke and passed away. I remember being frustrated when my mother-in-law's condition suddenly changed and she was taken to the hospital, but I couldn't get in touch with my husband. My daughter, who is a nurse, also rushed to the hospital, and somehow I was able to calm myself down, but I couldn't contact my husband until the next day. "Why aren't you answering the phone? Your own mother has passed away." My husband's voice over the phone was silent after hearing this, and there was a long pause, but I could secretly hear a woman's voice in the background. "What's wrong? Did your wife find out?" That's what I could hear clearly. My husband seemed unaware of me hearing the voice and said,
I'll be home soon, so hold on.
He hung up the phone immediately as he said this, but at that moment, I was certain of his affair. I was in quite a shock by my mother-in-law's death and the truth about my husband's affair. My daughter Ava was there to help me. Even when we were taking care of my mother-in-law at home, Ava was always there to help. My mother-in-law always expressed her gratitude to Ava, who treated her kindly. Ava told me that she became a nurse because she couldn't forget the words of gratitude from her. Although I am used to such terrible situations, she makes decisions promptly instead of me, who cannot do anything since I was just in shock. Ideally, my husband, my mother-in-law's son, should be in charge, but he's too busy having an affair behind my back and hasn't shown up yet. Even at the funeral, my husband was in a daze due to shock and couldn't do anything without getting any instructions from me and Ava. However, when it was time to discuss my mother-in-law's inheritance, my husband was completely different and enthusiastic. My husband's father passed away when he was young, and it was just my mother-in-law by the time I came as my husband's wife. Because of that, my husband didn't want to leave his mother alone, so he forcefully decided that we would live together. My husband was an only child, so I thought he would inherit all of his mother's assets. However, one day, a lawyer came to our house and started talking about a will left by my mother-in-law.
I'm supposed to be the only heir. What is she thinking?
My husband seemed initially anxious, but he began to rejoice when he heard that he would learn about his mother's inheritance. The will stated that the house and land would be given to Ava. The rest would be inherited by my husband, so he looked relieved.
I'm the one living in the house, so the land and the house can't be sold. It's fine to give them to Ava. They'll be hers eventually anyway.
My husband didn't care, but the lawyer also had a letter from my mother-in-law to Ava along with the will. I was curious about what was written in the letter, but Ava didn't show it to me, so I forgot about it. After inheriting my mother-in-law's estate and getting some money, my husband began to be more extravagant in his ways of spending the money more than ever. Although it's not like the inheritance was a large amount of cash, it seems that my husband is happy because he got it for free. Seeing my husband like this, I began to feel uneasy about whether I could spend my life being old together with him. Moreover, my anger toward my husband, who is still having an affair, is growing. At that time, I noticed something strange about my own body. Even after my mother-in-law passed away, I continued to work from home, but I began to feel stiffness in my hand when I held my computer mouse. The abnormalities weren't limited to my right hand. They also appeared in my left hand, which I used for typing on the keyboard. Concerned, I consulted with my daughter, who immediately advised me to see a doctor, leading me to visit a nearby clinic. Despite undergoing various tests, the root cause remained unknown, leading to my obtaining a referral to a university hospital for a more detailed examination. The doctor gave me complicated medical terms, but what I understood was that eventually my muscles would atrophy, leaving me bedridden. Seeing the serious expression on my medically knowledgeable daughter's face, I became acutely aware of the severity of my condition. Even if I'm bedridden, your father won't care to look after me, will he? Trying to lighten the mood, I joked with my daughter, who looked more serious than me, but she started talking while crying. I'll take care of you for the rest of my life, Mom. My daughter's words were comforting, but to be honest, I couldn't really grasp the magnitude of what she was promising. If it were a diagnosis like cancer, I could prepare myself, but at present, it's just that my hands are stiff and there's no severe pain. I didn't understand the seriousness of my illness. However, the prospect of becoming bedridden was shocking. It's hard for me, but I also know from taking care of my mother-in-law that it's tough for the person who has to look after me. That night, the three of us ate together for the first time in a while, and my husband asked,
Did something happen? Both of you are quiet, and it's rare for you to come home, Ava.
After dinner, Ava intended to talk about my illness. Dad, listen calmly. Despite seeing our serious expressions, my husband continued to joke.
Dad's always serious. You know that, right?
Seeing him like this, I was tempted to get hospitalized as soon as possible, leaving him behind. Mom has become seriously ill. She's fine now, but in the future she'll end up bedridden. My daughter's explanation didn't stop my husband from smiling and saying,
She looks too energetic to be seriously ill,
as he teased my situation. Since my mother-in-law passed away, he's been out enjoying himself all the time, and if Ava hadn't told him that there was an important conversation that we needed to talk about, he probably would have come home late at night. My hands are becoming less functional. At some point, I won't be able to make your meals. My husband, who was told off by me, replied with a smile.
I'll take care of myself, so don't worry.
It was clear to me that he was thinking of using my illness as an excuse to go to his mistress's place. Dad, you need to take care of Mom. No matter how angry Ava was and tried to persuade him, it seemed to have no effect on my husband.
With facilities to take care of her and the government's support for these serious diseases, it'll be fine, right?
He responded nonchalantly, finishing his meal quickly and heading to his room. Ava was left stunned, but I wasn't surprised by his answer. Still, I couldn't help but feel sad. For a while, I managed to lead a normal life, but after about 2 months, I started to struggle with normal tasks, and I couldn't use the computer anymore. I had previously explained my situation to my company, but it was at this point that I decided to resign. Around this time, Ava, who had moved out, returned since she was concerned for me, and helped with the housework, allowing us to manage somehow. Ever since he learned about my disease, my husband began to go out even more, and we stopped seeing each other, despite living in the same house. One day he came home unusually early and said,
I'll be going on a business trip overseas next week, so take care of things at home.
It was surprising because he had never had a business trip to overseas before. It was clear he was planning to enjoy a vacation overseas with his mistress, leaving me, whose mobility was failing, at home. I was filled with rage. By this time, it was becoming difficult for me to speak clearly, and I was frustrated by my inability to articulate my feelings properly. Leaving a sick person behind to go on a vacation? What a luxury. It seemed Ava also doubted his story, calling it a vacation instead of a business trip, but he just laughed it off.
What are you talking about? It's work! Work!
Watching him panic was satisfying, but it didn't help with how angry I was with him. After insisting that it was a business trip and leaving, Ava started talking once he was gone. Mom, starting today, you'll be moving into a care facility. I've arranged everything, so all you have to do is just sit and relax. I had noticed her packing and preparing for a move recently, but I had assumed it was for her to move in with me. I had heard her making arrangements over the phone, but I didn't realize it was for my care facility. The cost of moving into the facility was a concern. Can we afford the facility? Is my retirement money enough? Ava answered me with a laugh. Leave it to me. Now let's go. We're not coming back here. The thought of never returning to this house made me sad, and I began to feel the severity of my illness even more. The facility I was admitted to was affiliated with the university hospital where Ava works, and they provided excellent care. I was still worried about the fee, so I asked Ava again. I'm grateful for the care, but are we really okay with the money? Ava chuckled before telling me the truth. Don't worry, we sold our house, so we have quite a bit of money now. I finally understood the true meaning of my daughter's words when she said we wouldn't return here before leaving the house. We could not go back because the house and the land were sold. Then where is your father going to go when he returns back? Suddenly I began to worry about my husband, but Ava retorted with a grumpy expression. What good is it to worry about that cheating man? It seemed that even Ava knew about her own father's affair. He must be on his overseas trip with his mistress. He'll panic when he gets back. It would be beyond his wildest dreams to realize how much his daughter despised him. Ava handed me a letter, and upon inspection I found out it was from her grandmother. Grandma was really grateful to you for taking care of her. It seems she wanted to leave the house to you. It was written in her grandmother's letter, and she seemed to have intended to do the same in her will. However, she realized that my husband would probably oppose it, so she decided to leave it to Ava and asked in the letter that if I ever have any financial difficulties, it was there so that we could sell the house and land. Therefore, Ava did not show the letter to anyone. I was grateful to my mother-in-law who had been thinking about what would happen after her death. In contrast, the pathetic nature of my husband became even more prominent. Being known by his daughter about the affair and losing his home, I was vaguely wondering what he would do next when Ava handed me a divorce certificate saying, Mom, there's still something you need to do. With my barely movable hand, I managed to sign my name. The lawyer who brought the will also took care of the claim for damages, so it's all right now. In my mother-in-law's letter, even the fact about my ex-husband's affair was mentioned. She had also instructed Ava to consult a lawyer if anything happened. I had to respect my mother-in-law, who had seen everything. My husband, who had been on a long affair overseas trip, would probably be standing in front of his home upon return. Before he left for the trip, the house was there, but now it's completely demolished and has become an empty lot with a no trespassing sign. Dad, have you returned to America? Ava, the owner of the house, called my dumbfounded ex-husband.
The house has been demolished. Is this some kind of a joke?
In response to my ex-husband's question, Ava answered to him as if he was a stranger to her. Your belongings are in the rental storage. Please pick them up later. My ex-husband didn't seem to understand the situation yet, saying,
What? Where am I supposed to live today?
And he finally started getting angry. But my daughter kept talking to him coldly. You have your mistress's house, right? And when you have time, please come to our hospital. There are documents I need you to sign. After leaving those words and without hearing what he has to say, she hung up the phone. He only cared about himself and didn't ask a single word about me to his daughter. Later, when my husband showed up at the hospital where my daughter worked, she asked him to sign the divorce papers.
Where's your mom now?
It seemed that he finally remembered me, but she said, You're getting a divorce, so it doesn't matter, right? Even though he was told this coldly by Ava, he was happy to sign the paper. He thought he could sever ties with me, who's now suffering from a serious disease, and it seemed that things are all going the way he wanted it to happen. However, Ava has something to say. About the property division, I have asked a lawyer, so please hear the details from them. Hearing about the property division, the color of my husband's face changed suddenly.
The property division? I can't pay any property division.
To my flustered husband, my daughter threw back even colder words. I've been discussing to the lawyer on having it deducted from your salary, so you can rest easy. For my husband, the situation was far from reassuring, and he shouted out without thinking.
My own daughter enjoys punishing her own father so much, huh?
He lost his house, God demanded the property division from his daughter, and his voice, on the verge of tears, echoed in the large waiting room of the university hospital. My daughter answered honestly while laughing. It's fun. I've never thought of you as a father. You were just happily having affairs while everyone was having a hard time, including that time with Grandma and what Mom is going through now. My daughter spoke in a voice loud enough for patients and other hospital staff to hear, so my husband looked down and couldn't say anything back. He was told outright that he was having an affair in public, declared by his daughter that he was not thought of as a father, and he left the hospital with his head down as if to escape the scene. Thanks to my daughter, everything went well, but this time I was asked a favor by my daughter. Actually, I have someone I want to marry. Can I introduce him now? As I nodded slowly, a man dressed the same as my daughter came in. He was my daughter's colleague, working as a nurse, and 2 years older than her. I'd like to have a wedding as soon as possible, but are you okay with your health, Mom? Around this time, it was hard for me to speak, and I nodded heavily. As a daughter, she probably wanted to show me how she looked as a bride, while she still could. Thanks to my daughter and her husband, I was able to attend the wedding in a wheelchair, and I was overjoyed. I never thought that I could attend my daughter's wedding when I entered the facility. Even after getting married, my daughter and her husband were very thoughtful about me, frequently visiting me, and I never felt lonely. The time I have left is short, but thanks to my daughter and her husband, it seems like I can have a wonderful time With the time I have